there are times when we feel so content, and other times that we feel like we need the world now. We want it now, and nothing that we are pursuing really matters.
When Jesus alikata fall into the traps and test
Because
God,
he knows.
what if he was trying to like show us in context of rather like you wanna know if somebody loves you? Let's say you're betrayed, you've been betrayed, but you've anchored your life or whatever you do on meaning. Does it really affect you?
Kwanza, the story of trust, because I think now trust itself is a function of meaning. It's a question of how we define trust. Because trust is not something that can exist in crime. I remember kuna dem nishaimuuliza, to you, who is God ama what is God? And you know what she told me?
Yeah.
Aliniambia that it's that consciousness in you, it's that makes you awakened. It's that consciousness in you. Adi akafika place, I think Ali mentioned something to do. You are God. Have you ever felt confused about anything? Have you ever felt disconnected or even disillusioned? Have you ever felt like whatever you're doing doesn't just make any sense? Have you ever felt that?
Yeah.
Okay, can you maybe share an experience?
I'm a human being partaking this journey of life, of course. There are times in my life I've been like, what the hell is this, man? Why am I here? Why this kind of suffering? Why is this happening to me? And yeah, I'd call it a state of being hopeless. Nothing is working. Everything you're doing kind of seems that it backfires on you. I'd term it as a state of like hopelessness, and yeah, you've just given up in all of these, whatever we are here to do.
If I could also share maybe an experience where I nearly feel, I think as far as I can remember, the one experience that was so hard for me is when I lost mom.
Yeah.
Sometimes I even sit and think about it, and it just confuses me. Let me just put it that way.
Like,
it really confuses me, and sometimes I normally think, what if she were here today? No. But the one thing I actually appreciate about it is that anytime, there's a time when nikikumbuka whatever happened, nikumbuke she's not here. There's a time that it used to just do me in. Like I felt sijui aje, I was feeling very miserable. But I think especially the question of death of a loved one, it's quite, I don't know, it's really, and yeah, there are those experiences in our lives that whatever we're doing just do not make any sense at all. Sometimes it even seems like, even in our endeavors, in our journeys, in our adventures, in our pursuits, seems like we are just at loggerheads with the society, with our friends, even at work.
Every being of us is like,
hey, it's just not chaotic per se, but it's just very confusing. Unashanga kwani what the hell should I do? Am I
Mungu anataka aje, maisha yanataka aje.
And I think those are one of the questions that we can really ask. This is a very difficult conversation of when the weight of meaning can, the weight of the pursuit of meaning can really put us down, when it seems very confusing, when it seems like it just generally doesn't make any sense. It even makes us it puts us at loggerheads even with those who we love, those who love us back. unaona. And I'll give another example. I remember there's a time when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Mi nilikuwa napigana kila mtu, right, left, center.
Yeah.
Man, people who I'd say wao ndo walikuwaga, they're the ones who sort of,
Yeah, let's say they're telling you this is the career you should follow, this is
Yeah.
the path for you,
exactly.
this worked for me,
Mm-hmm.
so it should work for you.
And I was just feeling that apana, this is not it.
Yeah.
I know it feels that way, and I'm not saying it's just one moment that happens that it can't ever happen again, but it's like that's the most interesting about life, eh?
Yeah.
Ups and downs. There are times when we feel so content, and other times that we feel like we need the world now. We want it now, and nothing that we are pursuing really matters.
I want her to be a billionaire and that's it.
Hey,
Mimi nipatie pesa.
nataka pesa.
Yeah. Mambo ya mapenzi ya jana.
Yeah, so it's something that I think even if we have in the last 2 episodes we established the fact that I think it will be better if we truly understand the question of meaning and the questions even that we even need to ask on the subject of meaning. It's very important that we do that. But again, I think it's also equally important we also acknowledge that let's have a difficult conversation about meaning. The things, sometimes you want to do the right thing, for example. Sometimes you know what you're supposed to do. And
Yeah.
it just weighs down on you. You feel like, that's a what for? Really, what for? No. And I think one of these experiences that feel so uncomfortable, feel so actually let me quote Carl Jung. Carl Jung alisema, the search for meaning often begins with pain. And especially with the loss of Mother, I think that is where it all started. In as much as it was really a journey to the underworld after Mother died, in as much as it was I'm counting about 6 years after that, nothing made sense. Really, nothing made sense. I think it was during that time. You remember Nikikombe, there's this scene in Game of Thrones, I think it's season 3, where Lord Peter Baelish alikuwa naambia Lord Varys that chaos is in, Lord Varys alikuwa nasema, chaos is a pit that will just consume us all, eh? But Lord Baelish alibuambia that chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is actually a ladder. Unaona?
Yeah,
and he said some other stuff, alafu akasema it's just that climb that it's all there is. That climb is all there is. So unapata sometimes even as you're climbing that ladder, in this case the ladder of meaning, as you're climbing it, you might fall and you might break and you will never and some of us never get the chance to rise back up again.
Yeah.
It's that this pursuit is that it's like these are very,
it's like all odds are against you.
Yes, exactly. When all odds are against you, unaanguka hapo chini. As a matter of fact, sometimes it feels like you just can't even get up. I'll give you an example of this episode I'm being very personal, eh? It's something that I struggled with, manze nishai struggle na weed. Yani inafika point yenye unajua unafaa uache,
but you can't.
Okay, to me it actually appeared that ninafaa kuacha. Wengine I think it's part of life and whatever, but to me nilikuwa na feel nafaa kuacha. But the more nafikiria nafaa kuacha,
the more
naifanya,
the more stuck you are in it.
The more naifanya, the more I'm feeling so stuck. I'm feeling so confused.
Let's talk about addiction. And how meaning can sustain us or rather lift us from addiction.
And especially about addiction, kama kuna kitu mbaya bro, But you know, sometimes I think this is a conversation we're gonna have later in our pursuit.
Yeah.
But addiction in itself, it's something very deep.
It's like a maze you enter into,
Mm.
and you can't get out without you mastering why you're there and how you got in there and
Mhm.
what's happening.
And as a matter of fact,
And
itself,
the more you want to get out, the more you are hooked.
the more you're hooked, the more you keep doing whatever
The
it
more
is
you
you're
hate
doing.
it, the more you're hooked.
Oh.
I think we can say it as a state of meaningless.
Meaninglessness. Do you think meaning can arise from
From that state.
that struggle with
Yeah. Yeah.
addiction?
Yeah.
How do you even get to start to talk about meaning in
That state
because
of being.
it seems to me kama I'd give an experience still back in the days nikistruggle hii kitu it wasn't just weed, some other kinds of addictions that I will reveal, but but it's even funny that I'm laughing. But anyway, so
there is this continue.
unapata how do you even get to start to think about the questions of meaning at that point? Because mimi naweza kuambia
think
hiyo point
The only thing that can help you is start being observant of whatever is happening.
can you do that? Mimi nakwambia bro, I think we can arrange a visit to either kama ni mahospitali ama centers where rehabilitation centers.
Yeah, there is.
I'm telling you, the people hata kama wako rehab ama wako in these kinds of people, in these kinds of places, these people have no conception of what
Reality.
meaning can be, ama of whether reality can be different for them.
But I think for in such a state, can you get them to start understanding meaning like a child?
How do you do that?
Simple odd things. See the way you teach a child how to walk, the same way you should handle them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like they are far off falling from the reality, rather meaning. But if you start building them bit by bit, it will be a struggle, and actually you don't know if they will ever get out of it. But I think bit by bit,
You know,
never know.
sometimes naonanga ni kama there's a threshold yenye ukicross, getting back is so difficult. How about those people who've embraced be it crime, for example crime actually. Juzi venye nilipoteza simu, you know, I was like, are you kidding me bana? Yani someone is just seated somewhere anafikiria tu kuiba na ameiembrace, hafikiri kuachana na kuiba.
hiyo ndo mboka.
Yeah, there's that far about it. Shout out to nani huyo Lenny, but I'm talking about really like in real life.
Yeah.
Mtu unajua kitu yenye anafanya ni wrong, but ameiembrace.
Do they really know? I think there is a state where you might find yourself where you are really fallen from reality, so that you don't even know what's right and wrong. It's like you've numbed the conscience in you.
You know, there's a statement that I think, if there's a statement, especially in the Bible, that even biblical scholars and all of us who are in pursuit of understanding the Bible, the Word of God, is about blaspheming the Holy Spirit, the unforgivable sin. And some of the interpretations that I've heard is, for example, your threshold, ukishapita your threshold, either ni ngumu kurudi ama you just can't come back. So for example, I'm trying to think of people who have just decided to do evil. People who have actually made a very conscious choice to do evil. And they know this is evil. For example, in the past 3 years, we've been hearing stories throughout the world of vitu kama ati. It's just despicable. Vitu kama child kidnapping, child sacrifice. Mtoto ati anakuwa harvested, organs za mwili.
Yeah. They use it to either enrich themselves or rather gain something from it.
Sometimes I also think even in war itself.
Yeah, but I think you never know, because even the story, this guy who was persecuting Christians in the Bible,
Saul.
Yeah, but
Saul akakuwa converted to Paul. But sasa mtu kama Paul, for him, was it conscious? As in, is it, I'm talking about evil, people who have chosen to be evil. Even like anajua what is good, but rather ameamua.
But even him, he never know.
We are talking of those kind of people. Yeah, you may never know.
Yeah,
but there's sometimes trying to understand, especially now. Let me use my.
Tunasemaga hiyo leave it to God.
Mungu ni yeye anajua.
Anajua.
But assuming it's someone you know, someone who's like that, what do you do?
Depends.
With what?
Give an example so that you can.
So assuming unajua mtu mwenye anaiba, for example, ama unajua tu unafanya kitu wrong. There are very many examples that you can quote. Ama unajua best yako actually ana cheat. Okay, the context of evil hapo inakaa dogo.
Yeah, but
lakini ni sawa, we can have it even in that context. Like unajua your friend is doing something wrong. What do you do?
So you tell them bluntly.
You just tell them that whatever you're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
But is that what we really do?
No bana, hadi mimi unaonaga atajua tu. Ata figure it out.
Ukiangalia maybe ukiangalia sometimes, but then you can look at it in terms of the consequence. Ukiona consequence, but sasa I'm talking about yenye unajua, especially ni mwizi na anajulikana.
Being a good friend, I think you should tell them
So now the conversation is now the intersection between unaona this conversation we're having about what we actually need to do and what reality actually is.
Yeah.
Like unapata, most of us, we know if something is wrong, we know that we need to tell them that
I think we can,
but then again we just don't do it.
We can pose it as a challenge to us that next time you see that, at least tell it, or rather never lie.
Yeah. Don't tell a lie. Usidanganye. Like ukiona kama ni kitu yenyewe kusema ukweli, if sometimes I tend to believe that
can you say that lying is going against rather many?
Yes, you've reminded me of a debriefing we had last week with a certain team in Naivasha. We were talking about whether lying is justifiable, or if the context where lying can be justified. Can be helpful or can be justified. We were talking actually about that, and the point that I personally was trying to raise was just look at the consequence. Angalia consequence. Na kusema ukweli, yes, kuna wakati lying can help you, but that doesn't mean that you need we need to justify lies.
No, I don't think it can help you just because you benefit from it
from
now.
That moment. It doesn't mean
that it won't come back.
That is just a context yenye wewe ulifikiria probably benefit, but it's not. So the rule the law should be do not lie.
Not should be.
Is. Yeah. So just don't lie. Because the moment, lying is like bending the fabric of reality, and you expect the things to work out.
The more it stretches, the more it naps back at a greater force.
Yes. And the more we actually do that, the more we deviate from the
From
pursuit of meaning
meaning.
itself.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let me ask, back to the loss of someone. How do you, have you ever asked questions that pertain to meaning wakati maybe ulilose kitu or msee mwenye have you ever thought about it?
Yeah, of course thoughts will be there, like why this, why me.
Mm-hmm.
But recently I saw somebody saying,
Mm-hmm.
why not you? Why should it happen to another person but not you?
Mm-hmm.
Then the other case, for you to be tested, rather, if you have built, let's say you are somebody who is higher up, for you to test if something is real, you gotta throw everything at it. Rather, if you wanna know that his foundation is based on, let's say now we are talking about meaning, you have to throw everything at him or her.
Now, are you saying that we intentionally do things to other people to test them?
No, of course you are not the one. We are not the one who is testing. Let's say God, yeah, whatever, yeah.
I think that is also, I think after God, that kind of a concept as well happens in parenting. I've seen a clip on TikTok yenye, so imagine a bridge so across the bridge unapata ni mzae alifunganisha makamba kila mahali na alikuwa anatembea na mtoi wake, so yeye, so venye hizo kamba zimefunganishwa, it's in such a way that the father could just pass very easily, but now came the child. So when the child tried to figure out their way through, they couldn't. You see, this is something the father created.
Yeah.
Unaona, yeye he just went over to the other side perfectly smoothly, but now the child, on seeing that the father ameenda, the child started crying. No. So it was very interesting because you could see the child trying to, untie or trying to sort of find its way through those ropes, and alilia mara kadhaa until mara ya mwisho akaona mzaya akikam kiasi, and then ni kama alipata kasaik lakini mzaya katana akaenda tena, mtoi akaamua so you could see the child literally wrestling with those ropes and stuff like that, and akaenda. So there are, we can't say that we test people, we can't. It even sounds ridiculous but sasa imagine your boss at work, ama wewe assuming you're the boss, someone probably akona potential to do something. You just want to test them.
Sasa you test them.
But realize that these tests, we normally do them whether we know it or not. It just happens. Unataka tu kujaribu kufanya kitu kama relationship.
Wananipenda kweli.
Exactly.
Wacha ni mtest.
Wacha ni argue na design fulani imehappen.
Nionekana nipenda. Kama angekuwa ananipenda angefanya.
Angejiambia. Unaona, some of these things do happen very.
That's a nice question. Do we have, or rather, should we test people?
I don't think that question in itself vile iko,
it's flawed.
Not that it's flawed, but if you decide to consciously test someone, you have to bear the consequence. Wewe mwenyewe, you just have to bear the consequence as a person. If you're doing it consciously, you have to bear the consequence. So in the kama context, the relationship, ukiamua kufinya manzi yako kiasi mahali, bro,
I think
you have to bear the consequence. Remember, they will remember how you made them feel.
There is this point where Jesus anaambia, I don't know who, do not call my name in vain. Do you think it relates to that?
Come again? Ni context gani hiyo Jesus alikuwa anaambia nani?
Vile alikuwa anatestiwa na shetani. Alafu God anasema si mzaeni Yesu. Si mzaeni God. If you throw yourself, he will send angels to like nini, and you
do not put the Lord your God to the test.
Skatai,
Oh,
that's
wow.
God.
Mm.
But does it relate we as humans? Can it relate to our daily lives?
Relate how? In what context? For example, in our lives?
Like us testing now, me testing you. It's
Mhm.
like the same as Jesus will have tested God.
Jesus will have tested God.
Yeah.
Jesus will have tested God.
Najua I'm about to be controversial.
No, Jesus testing God. What do you mean?
See,
Jesus,
if he fell on the traps of the devil,
oh, but
you get it?
nimekupata.
Yeah. Can we relate
If he could
it?
have done it,
Yeah, singekuwa like a test.
and I think him not doing it was
Him showing us like,
what wisdom actually is.
yeah. Do you think they relate?
No,
Why?
because ndio nakwambia from our level, to come at if you decide to test someone ati kuona what might happen, that in itself is something that is quite far-fetched, is quite ignorant. There are just things
Ndo maana-
because unaangalia
ndo-
unataka kutest mtu for what?
Ndo maana
For
I'm like when Jesus alikata ku fall into the traps and test good.
Because he knows.
Yeah, but
he knows.
now I'm like,
What if he had jumped?
I'm saying, what if he was trying to like show us in context of rather like you wanna know if somebody loves you. It's like somehow flawed to put it.
You don't need to prove it.
Yeah,
Actually,
like that.
because you just can't prove it.
Yeah, it's something.
You can't
As in,
prove it.
reality will do its part.
Wow.
Stop like,
and that's wisdom.
Yeah,
That's wisdom. But kama ni context ya wewe na your employee, there's some bosses who
actually I wanna test if you're up to it.
ati hivi afanye kitu intentionally. I remember someone, of course we are not mentioning names, but I remember a story I heard somewhere of someone we know, yeah. Ati aliwacha microphone kujua kama huu msee angekumbuka na amefika kwa event hakuna microphone and they are kilometers away. What's that? So ndio nakwambia, if you decide to do that, I'm not saying that it's impossible to do that, but I'm saying if we decide to do that, we have to be very, very accepting of the consequences.
But
we need to think of the consequences.
For me, I'm like, that kind of, I think, somehow flawed.
Actually, thinking that you have the capacity or you have the authority to test someone, kusema ukweli, that is very, very flawed. I think how it plays out, hata kama just unconsciously you happen in our lives that sometimes unapata tu kuna vitu tu zina happen that seems like we are testing people. We shouldn't consciously decide to do that.
It's like me, I'm like, yeah, true.
We just shouldn't. Now, it's also reminding me of something else. How about betrayal? Dante, there's a book, Dante's Inferno. I think one of the most profound books I've ever read in here. He sort of, I think if my memory serves me right, Ali categorize hell in levels. Na nasema in the deepest level. I think it's the seventh circle. I'm not sure of this, but I think betrayal was placed huko chini kabisa.
Yeah.
If it's not the deepest part of hell, it's one of the deepest, because the moment you're betrayed, rising back up from those depths of hell is really.
But I have a question.
At those moments, even say, meaning itself just breaks.
Let's say you're betrayed. You've been betrayed, but you've anchored your life or whatever you do on meaning. Does it really affect you?
Let's say you've been betrayed. Let's use an example. Let's say you've been betrayed. So in your own opinion, anchoring yourself in meaning, unaweza fanyia huyo mtu mni ama what are you just supposed to do? Mtu akikubetray, what are you supposed to do?
To just leave it and go.
So okay, you should forgive but you don't forget. I mean, you just forgive and forget.
You forgive and forget.
And you keep being friends?
No.
Okay.
Just because I'm saying that forgive and forget doesn't mean that I be stupid.
Okay.
It's like,
So forgiving and forgetting and befriending them again is
no, you're
stupidity.
not I'm not the one to say that it is. No, here's the, no, it's your quest to figure it out. Yeah.
Wewe mwenyewe kujua if
So,
this
no,
is a stupid move.
you can't be given all answers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's possible. We need to
Le-
establish
let's
it's
say-
possible to forgive. It's possible to forget.
Yeah.
It's also possible
Actually, that's what.
to befriend. But then again, ni wewe tu ndio utajua if this is stupid or.
Yeah.
Wow. And how can you even tell that whatever decision you will have made at that particular time is stupidity? Utajua aje that if I decide to befriend this person again, I'm not
Let's
being
say
stupid.
you trust them again without building it from scratch again.
How do you build
It's
trust
like-
from scratch?
You've broken a trust which we had, me and you. We go back like strangers, like pole pole tu. The way you make new friends, pole pole tu.
So sindio nakuuliza, can you sort of maybe paint a clearer picture
Yeah.
of how going back to being strangers looks like? Like, for example, if you used to talk, punguza kuongea, right?
Yeah.
Kama
kinda stop
hanging out,
sharing those deep bits
yeah,
of,
like just keep your distance, but you're also positive. You're saying that enyewe, if it's two-way, we are open to befriending each other again.
yeah.
Nini, kwanza the story of trust, because I think now trust itself is a function of meaning. It's a question of how we define trust. What can you make trust what can make you trust a person?
Let's say we interact and both parties are gaining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
So if you're gaining, it means that there's trust between you two.
Yeah.
What if the gaining and the benefiting of it is based on the wrong thing? So for example, we are thieves. You're gaining, I'm gaining. Tukienda kuiba, see.
But is that gaining really? As in,
look at it. Just look at it design. Tumeiba, tumeenda tumepata pesa, tumegawana 50-50. So you're
but
gaining, I'm gaining.
have you ever heard this quote that there is trust amongst thieves? It's like,
Kuna quote kama yenye nimesikia is there's no honor amongst thieves.
but how comes the criminal world run their operations without trust?
Because trust is not something that can exist in crime, in the criminal world. It's like saying trust is something good, crime is not. So there's no way unaweza sema, we've seen even in movies unaona even family members hata wanauana, hakuna trust. Hii ni crime bana, because they know what's at stake. They know. So you imagine
But I think
drug lord.
they can trust that your want for money itatupeleka as in tutakuwa mabeshte juu you want money.
Do you really think that these people care about money? Do you think money is really
let's
the motivation?
Yeah, it can be a motivation. It
can be, but I don't think it's the main, because if someone is a criminal, they literally know that all eyes are on them, the government is after them, literally even if anyone who is next to them are after them. And anything, it's let me call it, this is actually an animal instinct. Ni tu atafikiria ni, how can I still be safe? Keep doing my bad things. Najua nafanya vitu mbaya, but how can I still be safe? Either nisishikwe ama this thing doesn't turn back and snap back at me. Unaona? That is what they care more about. Because
I think the question at hand is, can you really get away with you not founding your things on meaning?
Come again?
Can you get away with you doing things without meaning?
No, you can't. But I'm saying, remember I mentioned something previously about you might not be conscious of the concepts of meaning or what it might entail, or even meaning itself, asking if this is meaningful and stuff. But whatever you're doing, it seems ni kama whatever you're doing is just okay. Like whatever you're doing, it's actually something that matters, but it's not like it's common knowledge to you that this is meaningful.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot about our lives that we normally do that we don't really are conscious of whether they are meaningful or they're not.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just do them. And at this point, I'm being led to actually suggest that the pursuit for meaning, whatever it actually is, it exists in us. Every human being, it's universal. Because there's that if our pursuits are meaningful.
That's why remember earlier on we post this fact that you can't tell what meaning is specifically.
But you can sort of know it in ways that you can't
As in you
define or
can-
describe.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of which, let me ask you. Have you... Personally, I have. But have you ever had a crisis of faith?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Actually, I feel like
All the time.
most of the time.
Actually, hata maybe most of the time.
I'm
really.
like, yo, hey, this is too much, man.
Yeah. Wanting to understand God. I'd tell you for sure. I think it's a journey that I've also gone through, and I think I keep going
I
through
think
it.
the main problem we are seeking out meaning in the rather, let's say, the pleasures, identities of this world, and we are
Because
as in,
let me tell
we
you.
are viewing meaning through our own perceptions.
Yeah.
Remember, I earlier told you your will versus God's will.
Let's actually talk about that a little bit.
Your perception of meaning versus what meaning really is.
I decided to read the Bible from scratch. I think says in nimefika halfway through First Kings, and reading through those pages, I'm like, there's just a lot that already that seems so apparent to me that is challenging everything I believe, everything I think,
actually-
everything I think, everything I know.
Have you ever come to a realization? It's like, for all those years which you have been alive, it's like whatever you knew was wrong.
Yes. And let me tell you, the moment you start studying the Bible and actually, you might not believe per se, you might not, be a believer,
Yeah.
but the moment you actually sort of have an open mind and try to see if there's anything that the biblical text is trying to show us or trying to tell us, trust me, there are questions that the Bible is just so absolute about them. There are concepts that the Bible is just so absolute about them. Now, ukifikiria in terms of this is actually what God requires of us, it challenges you in ways that you feel hapana, mimi
It's
nataka
like-
maisha, nataka staki.
There is
It's
something
like
in you.
staki kufanya chenye Mungu anasema.
There is something
Wacha
in you
tuliseme hivyo.
which is rebelling.
There's just a rebellion. St. Paul calls that the old man. There's that nature about us that is really, because kulingana na the biblical claim, we are in a fallen state. So the nature that we inherited is very rebellious.
And it's like it must die when you're alive.
Crucifying the old man and allowing the new man to be born in Jesus Christ.
Remember this parable that Jesus told people?
And that's a very huge struggle.
For you to follow me, you must first of all go back to your mother's womb.
Yes. You must be born. You
What
must
does
be
that
born
mean?
again.
I feel like it's that what dies within.
Ni
Well-
hiyo arrogance ya kufikiria that probably we know.
Mi nadai hivi manze.
Ama I want it my
I
way
want my
and-
life to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
I think
But and then actually once you get past it, you find yourself doing something that probably isn't in alignment with God's will. It breaks you.
It
breaks
always
you.
breaks you. As in,
It will always break
you always find yourself cornered.
Yeah. And I normally say, I think that is one of the best ways to know if truly there's just something in you that is meaningful. That is one of the best ways to know. Because ukijipata you're actually doing the wrong thing, something you know it's wrong. There's a realm where it's wrong just for you, but it's not wrong for someone else. If you know that it's wrong for you, I think it's that reductionist. It's that fundamentalist. It's
Like the
to
inner truth.
you. It's not even a question of whether it's wrong for someone else, what someone else thinks of it. It's about you, wewe mwenyewe. This concept ni kama ziko layered hivyo. It starts kwanza with you.
Yeah.
The concept of right and wrong. Actually, something that is right for you might be right.
There's somewhere I've ever read that what do you do when you've lived a life of the way of the lie?
Sorry?
What do you do? Let's say when you found yourself in
That
a
you've
fallen
lived a
state.
lie.
Yeah, in a fallen state. Let's say
Like you're conscious that you have been living a lie.
not even you're conscious. Let's say you're at that state where life has truly cornered you, and you're like everything is not working. That state of hopelessness and despair. It's like you find your inner truth.
But
Maybe it's
Unapata.
just another perception of
I'd say I think we hear all around people saying that our generation is so broken that we don't even know it.
but I think it's from that being broken, something will be
Reborn. But then again, let us
You never-
individualize it.
you
Let's
never know. The
individualize
thing
it.
is, you never know.
Let's individualize it. There are things, and again, I'm telling you, if we are to truly consider the claim that the Bible makes, there is so much about how we're living today
That is wrong.
that is,
It's not aligned with the truth of other meaning.
yes. And it seems to me, Nikama, we want the word of God to be something that suits us, something
Your
that actually
perception of
favors
it.
us.
Your perception.
Sisi wenyewe tunataka, for example, let me give an example. Najua, I remember kuna dem nishaimuuliza to you, who is God? What is God? And you know what she told me?
Yeah.
Aliniambia that it's that consciousness in you. It's that makes you awakened. Unaona? It's that consciousness in you. Ati akafika place, I think Ali mentioned something to do. You are God. Now, generally, I'm trying to bring in history, woke mentality. And
remember pride. Pride.
I think
Man trying to be good.
kuna venye that concept in itself is just so ndio nauliza if so I normally tend to, because I come across many of such people, so I try to ask them from what are you basing that kind of a claim that you are God? God is the consciousness within you, sort of sijui awakens you and stuff like that. Do you base it on anything? How can you even tell that indeed God is that consciousness that dwells in you or sort of awakens you and stuff? How do you even know? Unaona? And I always find that the next question I normally ask, do you think that the God of the Bible... No, this is a Christian anasema hii story yote. But then namuuliza tena, do you think that the God of the Bible actually suggests what you're suggesting? Ni ukweli Biblia actually there's somewhere where it's saying ye are gods. But sasa our perception of how we are looking at it, how it's something very fundamentally flawed that even without us knowing, it's pride.
Yeah, there is this idea.
It's like saying kidogo tu, it's like saying if indeed we really want to realize our life as gods, kulingana sasa na the Bible, ye are gods, we need to do the opposite. We need to be humble. It's the only way we can truly be gods.
Yeah, actually, it's
Now that's a paradox. That's one heck of a
there
paradox.
is this. It's a Marvel movies, and I think it's Doctor Strange. For you to like gain the power of the water, you must first of all surrender yourself to it, and then
Yes.
you use its
Kuna
power.
surrendering.
You use its power as yours.
Yes, it's the same thing about.
But that doesn't mean that it's yours.
It's not yours.
Yeah.
Now that brings us to the as we bring this concept of faith into much focus. There's this notion of mi unajua I really believe that even in as much as there seems to be some sort of an awakening in Christianity and in understanding the word of God, it might be an error. It's Juicy I was sharing with Waroi. There's a very beautiful post on TikTok. It was talking about husbands, how they need to talk to their wives, how they need to treat their wives. Unaona, very beautiful. Ati unapata the words of a husband can break or make that the wife. They can actually do that. So ati we need to be so conscious of how to talk to them, how we need to treat them and stuff like that. Na ilikuwa inapeana very good examples through the Bible. For example, in the story of Job, the wife of Job alikujadi akamwambia una worship Mungu, you need to just curse him. The response of Job was very interesting. I think this is Job chapter 2 verse... It's in Job chapter 2, sikumbuki the exact verse. But Job alimwambia, I think alimwambia something like, you foolish woman, do you think we need to just worship God, ama praise God, ama thank him only when things are good and not when things are bad?
I think that's a true definition of what meaning looks like in that state of pain and suffering. Now,
as a matter of fact, I believe that in as much as we think like Christianity ni kama we understanding the word of God better, it needs to be anchored on just one thing.
Yeah.
The worship of God, the will of God.
Not your will.
Not sisi ati unajua sasa tunasema tukifanya nini chenye Mungu anataka tuko sawa. So Mungu ananiambia nisifanye ABCD, so niko sawa. But why exactly are you doing it? Unaona? So if it's for your own sake.
There's somebody who said there is this verse of the Bible in the and the word was made flesh and dwelt among us.
Yes.
I think it's like if the Bible isn't in somehow revealing in your life as a story.
And you know sasa that revelation ama that story, it needs to lead you to realize one thing, that we are creatures, we are created beings, and our supreme focus, our supreme purpose is to worship our creator. Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verse 13 says, ni kama it was some sort of a debate, alafu ina conclude ikisema, that now let us hear the conclusion of the matter. Anasema now the supreme duty of man is fear God and keep his law. Fear God and keep his law. Unaona? Now, ukisoma, especially I think it's in the book of Proverbs sana. Some it mentioned the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Another part it talks about understanding and knowledge. I think there's a verse in the book of Isaiah that talks about the fear of the Lord is his treasure. Like, if we truly want to know God, to see him as he is, the only way we can do that is if we fear him. And we cannot fear him if we think that Christianity is just... Now, it's like saying, it's not really just for our own good. Like, we normally think of it just in terms of our own good. We just don't think about the will of God and his glory. We don't think about that at all. Unaona? But which St. Paul anasemanga, I wish to know him, and I wish to know him and Christ crucified, him alone. unaona, so whatever he seeks to do, he just wants to give God the glory.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ himself in the Gospel of John akiwa in the Garden of Gethsemane, ukiona venye alikuwa anaomba and alikuwa anataka just to give God the glory, you know, to a point akisema, please take this cup of suffering away from me, but rather let your will be done but not mine. Unaona, hata
It's like
tukiamua
a
ati
form-
kusikiza,
It's like a form of surrender.
yes, like unasema it's not me, it's you, I don't want to do me, I just
So it's
want
like
to do you.
Coming back to meaning,
Mhm.
you must surrender your perception of.
Everything we think we know, everything
You
we
must
think
surrender
we
it.
just surrender it, and
You must-
surrendering, true. I believe
You
that
must
true
surrender
surrender,
your intellect.
yes, and I believe surrender. If let me again, I wanna just put in the bias of the me claiming about the Bible. I believe that true surrender is simply about obedience and submission to the will of God.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what leads us to true worship. We're doing it for Him and Him alone. We're not doing it for ourselves. Hata akisema seek ye the kingdom of God first and His righteousness, and all else shall be added. It doesn't mean ati sasa we are seeking God ndio hizi vitu zingine zihappen. No. We are seeking Him for Him, by Him, through Him, for Him. Unaona? And the moment our supreme focus is just on doing the will of God, I think everything else just happens as
flow.
a consequence.
Yeah.
Actually, the context of that biblical verse, you see, these things that are going to be added unto you, it just means from its original language, I think it's in Greek, it means these things will just be as a consequence of. Like, all we should be interested in is the pursuit of God. And I think that's the most supreme pursuit of meaning. If at all we are to consider maneno that the Bible is telling us, I think it's the meaning above all meaning.
Yeah.
It's the meaning above all meaning.
The ideologies of meaning that
Yes.
what's above all.
It's the wisdom above all wisdom. It's the let me say, it's the thing
It's
that is
like-
above all. It's the thing that is.
Yeah.
It's the thing that can.
Was, is, and will be.
Yes, is the thing that was, is, and will forever be. Like, it even huwezi sema ati haiwezekani, like ati story ya God haiwezekani ama sijui nini. Actually choosing to say that now is a choice. Now we are literally saying
Somehow arrogance.
it's impossible.
It's like
Could be ignorance, could be arrogance, could be choice, could be free will.
gravity is there without your own perception.
Whether you
of
like it or not. But God, it's whether you like it or not. His will is supreme above everything else, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, true.
Unaona? So it's really a matter of choice. And personally, hey, unajua venye we've fought with this thing.
Hizo vitu
You
huuma
know.
bana. Wewe unataka hivi.
But the moment you remember there's
Something great above you.
but then again, we just need to remember, even hata tukifeel ati tunataka kufanya kitu, but then again we need to question it in light of what God wants. It should give us a certain kind of joy, a certain kind of confidence that we can never go wrong in our pursuit of God. Really, we can never go wrong.
Yeah, true.
Unaona? And so wow, there's a statement, very interesting statement that I come across. Let me share this with you. Yeah. There's this guy known as James Baldwin.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about it's important, it's significant that we observe truth telling and integrity even in the face of societal contradiction.
Yeah.
But first, let us first of all paint a picture of the societal contradictions that we think exist. What do you think we as a society contradicts ourselves in? I think the one of it is the concept of God. Which another one comes to your mind?
For me, in regards to whatever you're talking about, the seeking of meaning in ideologies. It's like,
Elaborate.
let's say you're a musician, your career, anything.
Hmm.
There's that which is highest, regardless of your endeavors in this world.
But the contradiction comes when we believe that whatever we're doing, we love music. I love being an artist. I
Music is
love my
life.
talents. Yeah, music is all. And
M-
what else? Alta career.
Yeah, this
Mm.
is what it is.
I think this is where we also bring in
And
the concept
actually,
of marriage.
we always
Do you
think that.
think the way we perceive marriage is a
Yeah,
contradiction? How
yeah.
so? How so?
It's like a flawed view of what marriage is.
Mm.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
like this is what there is to life.
This is all there is to life. Eh? We think that all the answers we're probably looking
Yeah,
for
you'll
can
find
be
it in
found in
marriage, in
But does
career.
that mean that they can't be found in marriage?
They can guide you
Yeah.
to finding. Yeah, but we are proposing the idea that there is that one which is above all.
Okay.
Mm.
So if we think that the
Yeah,
answers...
for when you start out seeking meaning in all of these endeavors,
Mhm.
yeah, they can lead you to what is above. Yeah.
So now bringing us back to, if we are to consider the claim of the Bible, the
Mhm.
word of God, it seems nikama even our motivation to go into marriage should be based, should be
Is it your
supremely motivated by doing the will of God and
Yeah.
seeking him more.
Yeah. So
It seems so. It's not for us. Unajua tunafikiri nikimari manze
marriage
kila
is
kitu
for
itakuwa
me,
sawa.
bana. Ni mimi
Ati
ni.
sasa kila kitu itakuwa sawa, kunaona
I think it's Peterson said.
nitanona.
It's like the couples think that marriage is for them, but truly isn't.
What do you mean?
It's like when we get married, it's mostly for the children's sake, not our sake.
But then again, you can lose yourself for the children's sake, man.
How?
I think that's the unakumbuka. That's the, what do we call this? So unapata. Okay, I want to be very careful as I'm saying this. Unapata, there is, yeah, please, I'm really being very cautious nikijaribu kusema hivi. Unajua there's a way you can bring up a child, it turn out kuwa mbaya.
Yeah.
Unaona? And for example, parents who just, unaona ile kubembeleza mtoto in ways that I'm not saying if I kubembeleza mtoto, of course. I'm saying kuna design yenye you even know they're wrong, but you don't want to even discipline them. Telling them
that means you're not aligning your parenting towards many.
Yes, and again, unaona hiyo parenting meaning itself, if it's anchored in the pursuit and the knowledge of God and the worship of God, I don't think it can be in such a way. Hata Biblia inasema yeye ni mzazi na atachapa mtoto. Actually anachapanga wale anapenda. That is what God tells us in his word. Spoil the rod. What? Spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yeah.
Unaona? So then it means there's a
Does it apply to you, to us as grown-ups? If the Lord spares his wrath unto us,
sasa God just can't spare his wrath kusema ukweli. He can only spare his wrath kama enyewe ni ukweli, enyewe anaona the hearts of these people, enyewe they're truly seeking me. Unaona? But God akiona enyewe we're just going astray. But I'm telling you, God is so merciful that even in our going astray, ni kama anakuanga tu hapo na sisi. Lakini sasa kuna points zenye unafikanga ukipita certain threshold.
yeah.
Do you believe that there is a point where someone can get that there's just no saving?
I don't know.
Kuna point mzee akifika hawezi kuwa saved.
I don't know. That's your chia Mungu. I don't know.
I feel like pursuing that.
Not for me.
How about to haven't you had or maybe friends or people you might have heard of wenye walikuwa into, say for example kama ni crime, walikuwa into drugs and at the end they simply died, ama hata pia venye walidead ilikuwa tricky sana?
For me I'm like hizo ni mambo za God, hizo namwachia tu.
Wow. Now let me ask this still in that context, wewe mwenyewe as a person, are you able to conceive that enyewe manzini kiendelea hivi there will be no saving?
For me, I always view it from this angle. If I continue like this, I'm just doubling down.
As in?
It's like, let's say I have a flow in me, let's say a voice. For me, it's like, if I continue on it, the repercussion, zitaanzia come louder and louder, just like what do we call them?
So
the
in short,
plagues.
you know that enyewe hapa there is no saving nikiendelea hivi.
No, it's kinda you see the Israelites when they were leaving Egypt, as in kama wrath ya God inakujaga polepole, unakuja unatestiwa kidogo, then the next one inakuja more, then more.
Sasa nauliza wewe mwenyewe, are you able to tell that enyewe?
No, I can't tell. Sasa hiyo ni mambo ya Mungu, si yangu.
Wewe mwenyewe huwezi tell that ukiamua kufollow a certain path enyewe hapa naweza potea?
That's why I'm saying yes, I can tell.
Yes, God can sort of do things to
but you can tell. You can tell.
No, that's what I'm talking about.
But that's different. That's me, not as in it's different when it comes to my context rather than another person's context.
Have you ever heard of the statement dark night of the soul?
No.
It's from Christian mysticism. It's a spiritual void that precedes transformation. It's like a journey. It's like, for example, the only way that Jesus could have brought, the only way that we could have gotten eternal life, even salvation itself, is through his death and then through his resurrection. It's like saying the only way to go to heaven is through hell. Have you ever heard of that? Sasa zingine nasikianga hiyo statement na feel but if you truly think about it, bro, the only way to heaven is through hell. If you truly think of what that statement might actually mean, I think our pursuits can be very, very meaningful. There's a lot that we can understand.
So it's like the only way through meaning is through the challenges and the unfair bits of life.
Suffering, in pain, and even in loss.
Oh, wow.
And, do we even realize what you just said? Come your statement, the only way through meaning is through vitu kama loss, pain, suffering. We can't find meaning outside that. That's a difficult one.
That's deep, manzi. That's deep.
Wow.
It's like
but again ni kama kusema hiyo pain, loss, suffering, it's in layers, manzi. Hata assuming if you just to observe and learn from people, there are moments in life that you will be posed. We're just living in a fallen state. There are just moments that will come that will challenge you. There are moments that will bring things that are very painful. So the problem isn't whether we can never experience pain. Actually, it's ridiculous to think that we can never experience pain.
It will happen.
It will just happen. But how are we going to handle it?
Have you braced yourself for it?
For the storm. The only way that the Israelites could inherit the lands promised through Abraham was through the desert.
That's quite something. It's like for you to like. I'm picturing the story of the Israelites. Why was it that they really had to go through the desert so that they could get to the promised land?
There's something that God was trying to teach them.
But it's through the desert. There is something in you, guys. Remember, we were talking about your will versus God's will. I think it's through that pain and suffering that your will dies.
That you understand enyewe, hata nikifika to the promised land, this was not my doing.
Yeah.
I think even in businesses, unapata the only way that a business can remain so relevant is if it stands the tests of time.
Yeah.
Unapata the challenges that normally come with businesses. Many businesses you fail simply because it doesn't, it can't withstand
Can you
those
say
kinds of
it's
challenges.
the same case
Financially, whatever.
towards marriage?
A
All
successful
endeavors.
marriage, truly, enyewe ni ukweli, a successful marriage cannot be
I'm a successful
without
career.
those kinds of pains, those kinds of challenges. Like how we wrestle with those challenges is what actually will define a successful marriage and a successful career, and thus even a successful life.
Yeah.
Unaona? But then again, ndio nakwambia unapata
What if the person?
we have very desperate people, bro, that nakwambia sometimes, at this moment I'm actually now believing that meaning has to be anchored to something that is so deep and so profound, like God himself.
Yeah.
I'm really beginning to believe that. In as much as there are all those layers, even ile layer ya hizi vitu tu that we have to do meaningful things in our daily lives and stuff like that, all of it can only manifest if it is anchored in something that is as profound and as deep as the truth of the knowledge of God, who God is.
True.
Kusema tu kweli, unaona, because I'm thinking in terms of, if at all we pursue God, what he wants, we seek to do what he really, really wants.
His will, not our will.
His will and not our will. I believe even in sight of challenges,
We'll get to the
Jesus
promised
told
land.
the disciples, they will trample on scorpions and they won't bite them. They will drink poison but they won't kill them. And sometimes if you try to think even from a figurative point of view, ukijaribu kufikiria vile disciples walisha the martyrs.
Can we think of, we were talking about the state of hopelessness and despair. Can we think of it as rather a state that God's put us so that we can like kind of change our ways, or rather take it as form of a warning?
Okay. I also want to be careful nikisema hivi.
Yeah.
But it seems to me ni kama yes, kuna vitu God atafanya, but kuna zingine generally, and I think this is just a majority of it, it's because living in a fallen in a fallen state, there's something that was just taken. There's something that folded back into eternity, so to say, because how we perceive God in our present times, how we even approach it all,
your perception,
a majority of the times it's just without God.
Constantly thinking that you can like link the understanding of God with your intellect.
Yes. That's an error.
That's the error that's happening in today's society.
Have you ever felt conflicted in terms of your beliefs, what you believe?
Yeah, all the time.
An example.
Yeah?
An example.
pardon,
of
like,
how amount of conflicting belief systems that you have.
have you, let's say career wise, have you ever been like, I'd be good if I follow this path, but my heart wants to do another thing, man, and it's like I'm risking all that hard work I put in my previous career in search of another thing, even I don't know if it will be successful or not, and I'm going to start again. Have you ever been in such a state? For me, career wise,
Yes.
I've ever been. And actually, the pain of like you're feeling in this other endeavor which you went, and you know that you are good at whatever you are doing, and ungekuwa too successful, but rather you just decide to go to the unknown.
But
I think that's the fundamental story of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship.
mhm.
It's like skatai you are a master of all these things, ulienda chuo ukapata hiyo degree nini, but something else calls you towards an endeavor even you don't have an idea of whatever you're doing. And big entrepreneurs will risk it all.
Journey to the unknown.
Remember we are taught like always take the safe route, enda usome nini utapata kazi, but unafika a place you're like naskatai I'm good at whatever I studied, but I'm like, this journey seems interesting, but we forget that you must first go through the desert.
But more often than not, we really seek the easy way out.
Yeah.
For example, kama job security. Mi nataka job, so better tu nikuwe employed, nikae kama tu.
We are seeking,
employment, being employed is not a bad thing.
we are seeking out safety rather being masters of chaos and risk.
That's interesting. It's like we're built for challenges.
Yeah.
And the moment we remain
deviate from
comfortable, the
I
moment
think we
remain-
deviate from meaning.
Yeah.
Because you're not free.
Mhm.
You're bound to like that endeavor which you partook at that time.
But now let me ask.
There is this quote, as in those people who will start out searching for let's say it's career as a doctor, nini. It says that woe unto them because they'll be slaves of those titles and whatever. But he who doesn't know, as in it's like the gift that you get, it's like you're never tied to these identities.
Ama, you're not supposed to be tied to them.
I'm not saying that don't go become a doctor. I'm just saying that don't
But
be
don't let
tied.
them define you.
Yeah, you define
Usiseme
it, but
ati-
don't let it define you.
Sure. You define it, but don't let it define you.
Yeah.
It reminded me of
It's
a
like
certain area.
just because you're successful in one endeavor doesn't mean that you should hold on to it and don't try another endeavor, even if that means failure repeated times and you're all
back
on
to zero.
Yeah.
True. And it seems to me ni kama hiyo pursuit, there's something that can actually lead you to wanting to consider other careers. So for example, imagine mtu ameenda shule med school amesoma hiyo miaka yote, hata amefanya kazi hiyo miaka yote, lakini somewhere down the line I feel ni kama this is just not for me, let me go do caregiving kwa children's home. Now that is the conflict we're talking about. Hata familia wataona huyu jamaa, huyu mtu hafikiri vizuri, yani anawachana with all the power and the glory that comes with the career of
I've ever seen a guy, I think we were with you, to tumeenda children's home.
Yes, actually that's the guy I'm thinking of.
The guy was
an engineer, mtu alikuwa analipwa kitu 6 figure ba
man. Then
ati akaachana nayo akakuja hapa Kenya. He was from I think Europe, some country in Europe. Akaamua kukuja Kenya kufanya tu kazi kwa children's home. I think that's the thing about what calling actually is.
Yeah.
We've heard of very many stories of priests who were at the peak of their careers, but then again akaamua mi nawacha hii yote.
Yeah, remember the
acha niende nikuwe
the,
father, but
the,
then
the story of Jonah. Yeye alikuwa nataka sijui kwenda country gani.
Yeah. Lakini kumbe Mungu alikuwa na mpango ingine. Now huyu Jonah literally alikuwa anaambia God, mistaki. Siendi.
Hadi unaweza kubali tena ujenge career umeanza kuan to do fiti. Alafu ati tena ati unasikia calling yangu ni.
That's the difficult conversation we're trying to have. So imagine priests manzi. I know of one. Mabizi yenye alikuwa nazo. This guy was a multi-millionaire. But then he just decided to become a priest. And to him, baadaye ati ndio alikuja kujua yenyewe this is what I was called for. But initially alikuwa nasema yeye ni decision aliamua. And aliniambia alikosana na kila mtu kwao. Because actually all eyes were on him. Ni yeye alikuwa literally anawaprovidea and everything and stuff. But he decided to kumbuka that guy Jesus Christ alimwambia if you want to follow me
you must
wachana na kila kitu. As a matter of fact, mmoja akasema ati let me go bury sijui my who. Jesus alimwambia let the dead
be dead,
bury themselves. Unasikia venye Yesu alimwambia? Sometimes I normally think yenye Yesu alikuwa quite sarcastic man. Let the dead bury their own dead. What do you mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
So even remember the story of Abraham. He was called from what he knows to
yeah,
regardless of his age.
Yeah. And the most interesting story about Abraham is how do you go to sacrifice your son?
At it's God's will.
How do you do that? But ndio nakwambia the confidence ama whatever akina Abraham knew of the reality about God is something we have totally lost. It's something that folded back to eternity. It's something we
think even in this whatever you're doing, it's not even that we are uncovering hidden things. It's like tunakumbuka.
It's the kind of questions we are seeking to ask due to elewe whatever is truly happening.
Yeah.
Mi kwanza story ya Abraham manzi mi uni interest sana. Haku question. As a matter of fact, now this is the most interesting thing. This is a study I did juzi, yeah? At the first time where worship was used in the Bible was kwa hiyo story ya Abraham wanting to sacrifice Isaac. Hakuuliza God story mingi. Hakuuliza God story mingi. Alikubali tu. And that's the highest form of worship, where you totally submit.
I have a funny theory. This is quite personal to me. Those endeavors which I'm like, it's like I sort of don't care. As in, it's like we are competing, you're competing. Then I'm like, if it comes to this, I don't want. As in, it's like some act of being careless. Only succeed in it.
But it's something that you're willing to die.
Yeah.
Nayo. Like, you don't even know. Actually, it's at this point where you don't even know why you're doing it. But you feel nikama you're so compelled to do it.
Yeah, but for me, I'm talking the endeavors. Let's say we are competing. Who's the best? Ama nani atakuwa number 1 shule? Who's the best musician? We are at it. Then let's say I'm part of the nini. Then I'm like, mwenye atakuwa kue. Miraculously ndo unakuaga number 1. Lakini ile time uko ayo ni mimi ni mnoma sijui. As in you know time ufikagi hapo manze.
But let me ask,
do you think it's the same way? As in it's like the moments you're like you're willing to sacrifice what you have and give it unto the Lord.
It's when things actually work.
Yeah.
Mimi naweza kuambia as a testimony bro. The moment I think I began, I'm not saying I've lived it perfectly ever since I started it, but the moment I actually, let me say it was sort of a revelation, because I only, at this point I wouldn't say I actually believe in Jesus Christ. I wouldn't say I believe. I'd say I know him. It's quite an ambition, but and I feel in everything that I'm doing, always there's that sort of a voice that whispers, and I'm asking, what does God want?
Me actually feel my story ni kama hadi inakuwaga repeated over and over again. It's like I always go in phases. Nakuja hapo na start an endeavor. Bro, it's my will. I wanna be number one nini. But with time, I'm not, as in you're not getting to the ranks of it. You're like, so vile unadai God.
And that is when
Then somehow
a
funny
broken
like,
heart and a contrite spirit he will not reject.
yeah.
This is something you've ever mentioned kitambo, and it stayed with me.
Right.
Alisema unaona, sometimes we as Christians tukifikiria mtu fulani as so lost, as so hopeless, as so broken, as so miserable, God is closest to them.
Yeah.
And I'd say, I think ever since, that statement has always stayed with me. And I've literally found myself in situations where I just don't know what to do. I can tell you the number of nights zenye manze bro mi nimekaa pale.
I have this idea that the act of you confessing that you don't know what to do,
Yes.
it's a form of worship to God.
Yes, and actually that
You're
is how you know.
acknowledging there is something greater.
And that is
than
how
you.
you start to know.
Yeah, the answers reveal itself.
Yes. It's like Jacob. Jacob,
so
he wrestled. So huyu jamaa akapatana na, it was, I think alikuwaga naenda kuconfront, sijui kama ni bro yake Esau ama nini, na unapata ni kama everyone alikuwa ameenda, so yeye akaamua sijui kupitia route gani, akapatana some sort of, sijui kama ilikuwa riverbank kama some sort of a kavali somewhere there, akapatana na mwanaume mahali, wakapigana wakapigana yani hadi who prevailed? Is it Jacob who prevailed? I think it's Jacob who prevailed. Ali prevail. I think hiyo success yake ilikuwa, I think the moment ali realized that he's actually not wrestling with a normal man, alimshikilia akamwambia uende mahali until unibariki. Unaona? Na ukiangalia Jacob's situation from that context, alikuwaga literally at his most vulnerable moment in life. Everything is against him. His family is against him. Ni kama watu wanataka kumtoroka.
So
but then akamwambia, unasikia hiyo struggle, he wrestled. Alafu, I think that angel, sijui ni kumdislocate a hip up hivi. Na hapo ndio akamwambia, you are no longer Jacob. Your name is Israel. Unaona, ndio hata wenyewe kusema kweli, even in our struggles, I think this is something very important. Hata tukifikiria manzi tunapitia shida aje, tukifikiria kuna struggle aje,
let's find small bits of like wrestling with.
Yes, let us seek to grapple with it, let us wrestle with it. That's the challenge that you're talking about, that it seems it's as if we're built for these kinds of challenges. Actually, the only way to know, in a way, hiyo unaona, hiyo kukua humble and claiming that you don't know, actually wewe tu unasema hakuna kitu unajua. Unajua wengine wetu sisi ni wajuaji sana. Kusema ukweli, wengi wetu sisi ni wajuaji, lakini unapata, especially if we are not being open minded in whatever we are talking about ama whatever we are seeking, hatutajua vitu. Like, ask the most stupid questions there are. Ukiona kitu ni kama hai make sense, uliza. Kama unataka kuchekelea, in a way that is actually
nowadays I always consider me thinking that I know that's a red flag.
Yes, but then the moment it occurs to you that unaona ni kama you've understood something, let that thing go. That you've known. Keep seeking. That's pride. Keep seeking, keep asking, keep questioning, keep researching, keep studying, keep learning. Kweli, I totally agree with that.
Remember the quote, pride comes before a fall.
Yes, and it normally happens wakati it's at the peak.
You're at the top.
At the epitome success and whatever it is.
Yeah.
Unaona?
So at any point, if you're not like climbing that ladder of meaning and wrestling with meaning itself,
no, that's very dangerous. That's very, very dangerous. We need to really go back to that relooking.
and don't
that,
look down on those people who like wanaka wametandikwa ile mbaya.
Yes.
God is closest to them.
Yes, true. And that is what really is happening in our society today. Ati unataka utritiwe design fulani. Politicians want us to lick their feet.
Every man for himself.
Exactly. It's a very sad state of affairs, but we are saying we can start somewhere. Start somewhere. And I think that's the beauty about, let me even now categorically call it God's mercy. It's the beauty of it. Regardless of what has happened, regardless of what we've done, regardless of how sinful, how lost we have been, God's mercy is always sufficient. And the grace is always constant. It's always present to enable us, realize that and start the journey towards the true worship and the knowledge of God.
Yeah.
And in as much as sometimes we can feel confused.
There is this analogy of the Bible. Well, sijui wanasemaga ni, but they state something like the wise fool.
Mgani?
Don't know, but there is it's something which I've always hold closest to my heart. It's like you gotta need to be a fool somehow to get it right.
Ni kweli.
But as in, it's like they call it the wise fool, something like that. Yeah.
Hizo vitu ni baadaye, but I get your point. So I think yes, we now at this point of this conversation we need to acknowledge the fact that sometimes the pursuit of meaning itself can be very confusing.
Yeah, man.
Can be very disheartening.
Do you think we can also suffer by us rejecting the idea that to go through, to get to meaning, you must first you go through pain and suffering? Do you think by rejecting that idea leads to more suffering?
Yes. If we really think that we can shield ourselves against suffering.
Have you ever been in a point, for me, I've ever been in it, it's like you are rejecting the idea that I must go through this. It's like you're always on the same loop.
Umenikumbusha kitu. Unapata now, especially kama sisi wa Kristo. I reject poverty. I reject sickness. I reject. But sasa unapata hapo sasa ndio vitu zina happen. And you're like, kwani sinaomba. I'm doing everything that needs to be done.
But ile time ujali, bro, tunakoga na hii tushaiambiana na msee. Ile time unatakaga pesa na upataji. Lakini sasa ujali ndio hiyo kuja.
But this is what Kristo tunakuanga very dramatic. Sema tu ukweli. In prayer I reject, ama hata kwa status people put on their status or even Instagram stories, I reject poverty, I reject sickness and stuff like that. But unakaa unajiuliza mtu anaelewa chenye anasema really. It's one thing to just say the words.
It's like considering yourself so special that you shouldn't
you think that you're immune to such things.
You shouldn't go through it, but another person can go through it.
But we are simply saying, let us now, if it's about poverty, if it's about suffering, and if it's about all that, there is grace. As a matter of fact, nishaiambia one of our friends that unaona sisi as men, ashainiuliza, why do you think that sisi men to struggle sana kutafuta pesa? Nilimwambia kitu yenyewe mwenyewe alisema ile mshock. Nilimwambia women need to, now more than ever, we need to know God.
Yeah.
We need to pursue God. That's the only way that tutaanza kujua how ama what to do when it comes to our finances.
It's like if you hold...
Aliniambia sasa wewe Mungu anatokea wapi kwa story na pesa.
but the thing
that's
is,
a question of
if you
another day.
go
I'd like to share it.
after money, it's like it will always
The
run
more
away.
you go after it, the more it runs away in a way. Unaona, and going
48
after money,
48 laws
we
of
need
power.
we need to understand this. Going after money doesn't mean that you don't you don't work and tafuta money. It actually means unapata if all you're thinking if all you're saying if all you're doing is just concentrated on the pursuit for money the pursuit and the love for money, that's an error. That's an error. Thinking that probably ati nikipata pesa kila kitu itakuwa tu sawa, that's just ni sawa ukipata pesa itakusaidia and stuff like that, but hiyo kufikiria money is the solution and everything. I know this is gonna cause a lot of controversy.
But I think men to fall up na ni pride yetu inatupataga
man. But there's something greater that we can pursue that can sustain even our finances.
Bro, nimeteseka hii mwaka nimepata do, so it's like it's my turn bana, watu lazima niheshimu bana.
Nani hajaipitia hapo? ai mimi venye nilianza kushika hata unajua unakumbuka tushaenda club bill ya almost 17 Gs.
Unataka nini tisha?
Hadi naona ati uko karibu kumaliza nasema leta bia, hata ikikuja nachukua na chukua.
Kumbuka hii kuna time ulisemaga leta saa kritika hapa chini. Ndio namaliza unachukua
Life is really interesting.
Alafu tena hiyo pesa ikikosa unarudia Mungu
kuko hivi na hivi. But we realize the more
lakini bro inakuga tempting, tuseme umeenda club na friends. Bro unataka kuharibu meza na unajua bro niko na do leo. Lakini unakumbuka hizi vitu bro unakanyagia. Wako hapo wanauliza nani umekanyagia uko like
unapata restraint fulani.
Alafu uko like bro nitarudi ile state bana.
But then I realize the more I've been in this journey to pursue and wanting to know more about God and worship and all that, I realize there are things that I just can't do. I realize hivyo. It's like not that because sitaki kuzifanya.
Nakumbuka
I really want to do them.
The time when Jesus was aliambia turn stones into bread.
He had the capacity to do that.
Yeah, just because you have the capacity to
doesn't mean you should actually do it. And I like it. There's a statement I think I had that do not give your weakest parts what it wants.
Yeah,
especially
unaona kitu fasting.
Unaona especially kitu yenye is so compulsive. Yes, it's something very compulsive. For example, allow me to do this. Unapata ukitembea tao, assuming umeenda tao kununua hoodie na umesema hii ndio pesa nitaspend, but then again upata hata kitu kingine unajiconvince wacha nitoe yoka pesa nitairudisha. Unaona, now you've given in to that weak part. It's a weak part anyway, that it's very animalistic. It's an animal instinct that just wants to satisfy its need. And the one thing we need to understand, needs are like very insatiable.
Gratification.
You instant gratification.
Do you think I have this idea that we get to addictions through instant
yes, now that I agree with.
Through feeding
that. Unajua tukisema weak parts it might feel ni kama we are so incapable, but no, it's that animal, it's that old man we've been talking about, that just wants to feel comfortable, that just wants to feel.
It's a form of pride.
You unataka tu kufeel fit. The more you give in to that, the more chaos becomes evident and manifest in life. Kusema kweli, you really don't want to give your weakest parts everything it really wants. As a matter of fact, anytime saa zingine nakanga hivi kwa nyumba nafikiria leo na feel kukula kitu fulani, nataka kukula nyama.
Sasa unajua account iko loaded.
What's it?
asi nimeiwakia bana.
Yeah, wacha nirudishie mwili shukrani. Of which there's a place for that. I mean, hizi vitu zina exist for our enjoyment, to understand that even in this life, tukienjoy hizi vitu, they can add on to the quality of our lives. That's it's important to do that. Lakini
like I always ask myself, let's say nataka kwenda out, have a good time. Najiambia siendi. Nikifeel ni kama kuna a bit of nini.
Kitu ina kucompel.
Uende. No, that's the time to not go.
Yeah.
But kauko
kitu ina kufeel, unafeel yenyewe hata unajua yes niko na pesa, lakini hii pesa nimefikiria kweli. Kesho nikitoka huko mahali nimeenda, will I still have this money? Will I end up so tatu bro? Niokolee so tatu. No, hakuna shida kuomba do.
Ushiogopa kuangalia M-Pesa balance. Umeenda uko like unatumia tu do hadi
unaanza kufeel guilt fulani
umefika fully hadi utaki kuangalia hadi kwa konda kwa macho na muonyesha hivi hadi utaki.
Bale unaona hata kama una transact na simu, especially ukiwa kwa mate, unaangalia balance alafu unaleta simu karibu na uso mwenye ako kando asione balance. Alafu hata ukionyesha dono unamuonyesha haraka na simu kwa mfuko basi. Sababu ukiona hiyo balance asema
mimi kuna time nimekuwa bro staki kuangalia balance. Niko like I just want to survive this week, so bora fuliza ijagozo najua niko sawa. So na kaza bro, na kaza wiki naona imeisha na furahia.
I think we really need to understand your aspect here. I think it's a conversation we're gonna pursue.
It's that
of financial
we are
planning,
talking about that,
understanding the role of money in our lives. It's very important.
How money can lead you astray from meaning. How these pleasures of this world
they're very mundane. Those are pursuits that are very, very mundane.
And it's through those that we lead ourselves into places of like chaos and meaningless addiction stuff. So in as much as we've had a conversation about a difficult conversation about how meaning can be confusing, comfortable and all that, it's also important to understand that when it comes to meaning, in as much as it's confusing and stuff, I think it's that grappling with it, that wanting to understand it, that truly makes all the difference. Because atakama we get into areas where we feel conflicted and stuff like that, doesn't mean that meaning has lost its meaning. Doesn't really mean that. It's in that grappling, and it's in that for me, asking those as deeper questions as you can. I think that is what we need to pursue even more, instead of just deciding that whatever I'm doing doesn't make sense and stuff like that. I mean, there are deeper questions that you can ask in light of such disillusionments. You need that Dr. Peterson gives that. What do you do if everything of you're doing is wrong? Just look for something little to do.
Like making your bed.
Yeah, man.
Bro, Waje, how are you?
Good.
What do you mean by you're good?
I'm just in the fight of finding meaning and wrestling with it. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And I think I love the journey.
Why are you doing it?
Yeah?
Why are you doing it?
I'm just like a kid on an adventure. I just love adventure, man. It's like I love not knowing what will happen tomorrow. I love not being anxious of tomorrow, what will occur. I just love doing it, man.
Keep doing it. Keep doing it.
I'm just a kid.
At this moment, as a friend, I'd actually tell you, keep doing it for the greater glory of God.
Yeah, man. I think
keep grappling with that. Whatever that means, keep grappling.
The times where I was lost, it's when my will prevailed in contrary to God's will.
What does it benefit a man if he loses his soul and gain the world?
I focused more on gaining the world rather maintaining my soul. Remember the story of the alchemist when he was told to like go and see and contemplate on these beauties of the castle where he was at. The first time he was given, I think it's some water on a spoon. He went, he focused on the spoon and then came back to the king and was like, the king asked him, did you see the beauties and meaning of life? Now we are equating it to life. He's like, no, I was so focused on not losing whatever I had. The second time he was told, go and explore the pleasures of life. But then he went, came back, and he didn't have the water on the spoon. He was like, Skatayuli, you did this in life, you went on this, but you didn't preserve the water which was given unto you. Then, as in, it's like a challenge that you should explore these things of life and find meaning in them, but preserve. It's like you're preserving what meaning is, rather. Yeah.
Wow.
The challenge is preserving well. You're in war, or rather, seeing the beauties of life. Yeah.
Wow, bro. To greater pursuits.
It's a greater pursuit.